So we're seeing Loki go berserk in this chapter because he's swinging his hammer Ragnir at the treasure tree Adam and straight up lighting it on fire. Also, at the end of this chapter, we're seeing the Elbafian children's fears come to life, and I think that this could be important foreshadowing for what is to come. So let's break down both of these sequences because this chapter is pretty good. So as we saw before, Luffy and Zoro had partially released Loki. They removed most of the chains, but they decided to keep one sea stone cuff on his leg, to prevent him from essentially activating his devil fruit and keeping him partially weak, I suppose. But even with this one sea stone cuff, Loki is still strong enough to stand up and use his hammer. Let's not forget that Loki's bounty is 2.6 billion. And this was like 2.6 billion 6 years ago, for all of the crazy power creep that's happened within the last 2 years. His bounty is higher than what Blackbeard's original Yonko bounty was. So yeah, he's ridiculously powerful and probably quote unquote Yonko level. So as he gets up and he grabs his hammer, he's like, you really thought that keeping that one sea stone cuff on my leg was enough to contain my power? If you want to save Elbaf, release the last shackle now. If you thought I couldn't do anything in this situation, I'll show you otherwise. So this is pretty interesting because Loki's saying, if you want me to save Elbaf, and I'm pretty sure this is in reference to what happens earlier in this chapter when we see the children of Elbaf being led to the beach because they're being abducted by the Holy Knights. The implication is that Killingham is using his devil fruit power to put them asleep, while Gunko is using her power to lead them to the direction that she wants. And we're going to see that it's very likely that Summers is using his devil fruit power to bring their fears and or nightmares to life. But we'll get into that a little later. But as the adult giants are realizing this, they sound the horn of Elbaf, which warns the entire country that, hey, something bad is happening. And I'm assuming that Loki hears this. So Loki, like we've been talking about, is probably an anti-hero or an anti-villain. I assume the former, but we're gonna have to wait until what happens after this chapter, because in this chapter, he doesn't wait, because he's like, you better hurry up. If I hit something, it's gonna go down and the flames will spread. And you know that that's Elbaf's weakness, right? And he doesn't even really give them a chance to respond. He just swings Ragnir right at the Adam tree, and a lightning strike comes down immediately, hits the tree, and sets part of it on fire. So this is a pretty crazy sequence showing how powerful Loki is once again. This is the first time we're actually seeing him do something, and this brings a lot of questions, of course. So is this the beginning of the ticking clock of this arc? Since Oda, has like ticking clocks in a lot of these arcs, almost all of them, to where something big is happening and everyone has to run around and make sure that they get whatever they're going to do done, before whatever calamity is happening comes to fruition. I mean, it's a little early in the arc for that to begin, but maybe this will last a long time before they can finally put the fire out, or I don't know, maybe they do it in the next couple chapters. But regardless, Loki is capable of summoning lightning with his hammer Ragnir, which we've talked about before is like the Mjolnir equivalent of One Piece. So how is he able to do this? Now forgive me if you've watched my 2 previous videos, I'm gonna have to repeat myself, but I do have another possible theory as to how he is summoning lightning with Ragnir. So first we can assume maybe it ate a devil fruit, because that's coming back in fashion now. Items quote unquote eating devil fruits, gaining their abilities, because earlier in this arc we saw that Shanks' brother Shamrock had his sword eat the Cerberus fruit. Now, was that Oda kind of reminding us that this is a thing to let us know how Ragnir works? It's possible, but then it raises the question of like, what devil fruit did it eat? Obviously, it didn't eat a Nell's fruit because he's still alive and he has the lightning Logia. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, but there's also another possibility. So I was looking back at the mural on the Adam tree that we saw a couple of chapters back, all of the Void Century and pre-Void Century stuff. And if we look to the right of it, we see this flying ship type thing firing lightning down, and it's hitting the Adam tree. Now, when we first saw this, we assumed, oh, this is probably Uranus, maybe? And that still is very likely that it is Uranus, but judging from the mural that Enel saw on the moon, it seemed like Uranus maybe looked different than this. If that is in fact Uranus that we see in that mural, I assume it is because it looks like the three ancient weapons are depicted there. Uranus being up here, then this green ship being Pluton, and then, you know, the Sea Kings being Poseidon. Still not fully confirmed that that is the case, of course, but since this thing in the sky here looks different than what's depicted on the moon, maybe this isn't Uranus. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's some kind of satellite that's just chilling up above the Earth, possibly. And maybe Ragnir can activate that satellite and shoot lightning from it, possibly. We're just spitballing here, throwing out some theories, nothing is concrete, but that would explain how he's capable of doing this without having it eat a devil fruit. Now, if it's not any of those options, then it's just some kind of new power set that we're not familiar with yet. Maybe something to do with stored hockey, maybe, as we've seen before with Emmett and Joy Boy and that knot that he gave him. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Tokyo Treat, our favorite monthly subscription Japanese snack box. And this month's box is Cherry Blossom Bites, celebrating the Sakura season in Japan since it is spring. And this thing is filled with awesome Sakura flavored Japanese snacks and treats. And don't worry, it comes with this awesome booklet that explains all of the snacks in the box along with Japan and its culture. First, let's try these pistachio and strawberry pinomies. They have this really nice flaky texture to them with this sweet pistachio and tart strawberry cream inside. Next, let's try these sour plum salt crackers. They have a really nice crunchy and puffy texture to them with a nice light salty sour kick coming from ume and Japanese sour plum. And then last but not least, let's try the Kit Kats. And this month it is the strawberry shortcake Kit Kats. Guys, they taste just like strawberry shortcake. They knock it out of the park every time. Always a 10 out of 10 on these things. You really have to try them for yourself. And you could do that by checking the link in my description and make sure you use code Zhoniin for $5 off your first box. Thanks, guys. But anyway, that's where that sequence ends. Now we come to the end of the chapter where, like I said, the fears of the Elbafian children have been released. And it seems like this is a product of Summer's devil fruit. Since it's implied that Killingham put them to sleep, Gunko is leading them to the beach with her devil fruit, so the last part of this equation would have to be Summer's. I guess it's kind of similar to what Viola and Conjuro can do, but I don't know if it's exclusive to drawings or whatever. Maybe he could just bring fears to life or your nightmares to life once he knows what they are. Because we saw earlier in the chapter that Ange, one of the teachers at the Elbaf school, asked the children to draw their fears. And the main ones that the kids mentioned were Nika, Fenrir, Jormundir, Nidhogg, Storms, Draugr, and Ghosts. And we see those, but the main ones on display here are Nika, Fenrir, the big wolf thing. Jormundir was already released at the beginning of the chapter, but we see this huge dragon, which I don't think they mentioned. Did they mention it? But like I said, this could be foreshadowing for what is to come. So Nika, we're very familiar with. It was mentioned that he could either be a liberator or a destroyer. It's possible that the kids fear Nika because they were taught to. Maybe. Because we see that Elbaf has been going under like a reform by Harald, the father of Loki who died, the previous king. Because Ange said that he was a great king who tried to reform this country and was killed by his own son before his dreams could be realized. But the country refused to give his son a throne. And with that, we see that the kids are being taught to not be warriors anymore. And we also see at the end of this chapter that Summers asks Gunko what she fears the most, and she says Nika. And it's possible that this could be a dichotomy that we see amongst Elbaf and Mary Joie. Maybe the Holy Knights or the Celestial Dragons or whatever Gunko is had this fear instilled in her that Nika, will bring down everything that she has and loves or whatever. And the kids on Elbaf may be the same, that he's like this great destroyer. And that raises the question, is there like two Nikas, one liberator, one destroyer? We're still not sure. But the other things we see here, such as Fenrir and this dragon, could be foreshadowing to the major overarching villains in the series. It's been theorized that Figureland Garling, the father of Shanks and Shamrock, has the mythical Zoan Fenrir devil fruit. And that's because it goes into Norse mythology, which a lot of this arc, and possibly one of the larger overarching themes of One Piece is based on, because we see that Fenrir the wolf had two sons, Hades and Skoll. One chased the moon, one chased the sun. You know, the sun, the good guys, the moon, the bad guys. Shanks chasing the sun with Roger and the D's, and Shamrock chasing the moon with Garling and the Celestial Dragons. And then that only leads for Garling himself to be Fenrir and possibly has this devil fruit. And as for this dragon, well, I assume you know where this is going. This might be what Imu's devil fruit is. And it also goes back to the mural that we were looking at earlier, because it resembles this big dragon that we see on top of the tree. We still don't know fully what this thing is yet, but the implication is that this is what Imu is, or what the devil fruit that Imu ate was based off of, or gave life to that devil fruit, if this thing was a real creature that existed once. And yes, this also resembles the dragon that we saw in Punk Hazard, and I talked about this before with Sai like 2 years ago, how that could also be foreshadowing to what Imu is, and it seems like that is the case. But that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, and if you liked the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.